Have you ever just, stopped and wondered what it really means to be alive? And I'm not talking about some big philosophical question. I mean, biologically speaking, turns out life isn't so much about grand gestures. It's more like a constant, invisible, and totally relentless maintenance job. Let's dive in.
Okay, so let's start with the most basic question of all. How do we even draw the line between something that's alive and something that isn't? It sounds super simple, right? But, well, the answer gets complicated really, really fast.
I mean, it seems obvious, doesn't it? A rock just sits there. A rabbit, well, it hops around, it breathes, it eats. But if we had to actually write down the rules for being alive, what would they even be? What's the specific checklist we're using in our heads?
We might say, well, movement. A running dog is definitely alive. A plant growing toward the sun? Yep, alive. But what about when that dog is fast asleep? It's not moving at all, but we all know it's still alive. So visible movement, that can't be our only rule. It's just not a reliable enough test. This is where we have to zoom way, way in. Because the real signs of life, the things that truly matter, aren't always the big ones we can see with our eyes. Nope. The most essential, nonstop action is happening on a scale that is completely invisible.
And here's the key idea. It's called molecular movement. Biologists pretty much agree that for something to be considered alive, it has to have this constant internal motion of molecules, all working to repair and maintain its own structure. This is actually why scientists still debate whether viruses are truly alive. On their own, they do nothing. They're just sitting there. They only show this molecular movement when they hijacked a living cell. So why is all this tiny internal repair job so important? Well, because life is in a constant knockdown, drag-out fight against chaos. It's a battle against the natural forces of the universe that are always trying to break things down. Think about it. Living things are these incredible, highly organized structures, from tissues and organs all the way down to the individual cells. But the universe, it naturally trends towards disorder and decay. So the environment is constantly wearing that beautiful organization down. To stay alive, an organism has to pour energy into constantly repairing that damage, day in and day out. And that brings us right to the heart of it. To be alive is to perform this constant maintenance job. All those things we think of as life, eating, breathing, sleeping, they're all just different parts of this one continuous job. And we call these functions life processes. So if being alive is a maintenance job, what's in the toolbox? Well, let's break down the essential processes that every living thing needs to get the work done. First things first, every job needs fuel and supplies. For life, that's nutrition. It's the whole process of getting energy and raw materials, what we call food, from the outside world. You can't fix a thing without power and spare parts. And for living organisms, that's exactly what food is. Okay, so you've got the fuel delivered. Now what? You have to turn it into actual usable power. That's respiration. It's the chemical process, usually involving oxygen, that breaks down food to unlock the energy your cells need to actually do all that repair work. Now, in a big, complex organism, not every cell gets to be right next to the mouth or the lungs. So you need a delivery service, right? A transportation system is absolutely crucial for hauling food, oxygen, and all the other essentials from where they come in to every single other part of the body. And finally, any big project creates trash. The same chemical reactions that give us energy also create waste products, some of which can be pretty toxic. Excretion is the body's garbage disposal system. It's essential for clearing out all that junk so the whole system doesn't get poisoned from the inside out.
All right, let's zoom back in on that first tool in the kit, nutrition. Because how an organism gets its fuel is one of the most fundamental dividing lines in the entire story of life.
On the most basic level, you can split all life into two teams. First, you've got the autotrophs. Think of them as the makers. These are your green plants. They literally build their own food from simple stuff like CO2 and water. And then you have the heterotrophs, the takers. That's us. We get our energy by eating the complex stuff that others have already made. As heterotrophs, we completely depend on the makers. But here's the catch. We can't just use that complex food as is. We have to break it down into tiny, simple molecules our bodies can actually use. And to do that, we have these amazing little molecular tools, biological catalysts called enzymes.
So, to see how this all really works, let's take a little trip through the one example we're all experts on, our own digestive system. We're going to follow a piece of food from the very start to the very finish to see this incredible maintenance task in action. And here is our roadmap, the alimentary canal. It's basically just one long, coiled-up tube that starts at the mouth and runs all the way to the other end. But don't let that fool you. Different parts of this tube are incredibly specialized to do very, very different jobs. Our journey begins in the mouth, and it's not just about your teeth crushing the food. The second the food hits your tongue, a full-on chemical attack begins. Your saliva is loaded with an enzyme called amylase, and it immediately gets to work, breaking down complex starches into much simpler sugars. Next stop, the stomach. Here, powerful muscular walls churn everything up, mixing it with some seriously potent digestive juices. We're talking hydrochloric acid, which creates a super acidic environment, and that in turn activates an enzyme called pepsin, whose one and only job is to start tearing proteins apart. From the stomach, the mushy food moves into the small intestine. And this, my friends, is where the main event really happens. This is the site of the complete digestion of everything: carbs, proteins, and fats. It gets a lot of help from its neighbors, the liver and the pancreas, which pump in even more specialized juices and enzymes to finish the job once and for all. And get this, the design of this whole tube is perfectly tailored to what an animal eats. Herbivores munching on tough grass need a really long small intestine to give their body enough time to break down all that cellulose. But carnivores, like a tiger, they have a much shorter one because meat is way easier to digest. It's just a perfect example of form following function. Okay, so the food is broken down. Now, how does it actually get into our body? Well, the inside of the small intestine is lined with millions of these tiny finger-like things called villi. Their job is to create a massive surface area for absorption. They're packed with blood vessels that just grab all those nutrients and ship them out to every single cell in the body, where they are finally put to work for energy, growth, and that never-ending maintenance job. So, from that invisible dance of molecules all the way up to this incredibly complex factory running inside you right now, it's all just part of the constant, relentless job of staying alive. When you think about all the intricate machinery and all the energy it takes just to keep going for one more day, it really makes you stop and think, doesn't it? What does all this effort say about the value of being alive in the first place?